And I'm Wyatt Elliott from Notebook Entertainment.
And this is Horrorland News presents Review This.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
It stinks.
From now on, we're going to do just Review This for any television series. We're doing Squid Games today. We have Midnight Mass coming up with our correspondent Erin giving you the review, and so many more coming up. Today, as I said, we're doing Squid Games. So we were like, we have to jump on this wagon. Plus, we really wanted to see it. We've just had no time because we've been watching 50 million other things. We've been on set all month. We've been
October,
crazy.
November, December is like super busy for us.
And this year, they gave us like a horror trove.
Yeah, we didn't know there was going to be so much content when we signed up for this. But we're thrilled to do it. We binge watched the entire show, all 9 episodes yesterday.
Because we had a day off, so.
And it wasn't exhausting.
No, it was so much fun, you guys.
Flew through. I was like, what's the next one? What's the next one?
Except
Order
for the part
food,
I cried.
you know, like it was.
It did make me cry in one part.
Wow.
It was sad. Because, yeah, it's, for those who don't know, which I'm sure is very few people now at this point, it's Korean. Mm-hmm. It's a Korean film. We watched it, the original with English subtitles or whatever, the original movie. We didn't watch the English dubbed.
No.
But I have seen some pretty funny English dub moments that people have shared from that, so I kind of want to watch it back with the English dubbed.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like this clip here.
Grandma? Don't you ever call me that!
So that's why we decided to watch it with the original context.
We know how to read. We like to read. It's fine.
It's fine.
And it didn't take anything away. We weren't stuck. Oh God, we can't read the no. It was fine, you guys. Yeah. So let's begin. It opens with us being introduced to a guy named Ji-hun, and I'm going to stop and say right now, we are probably going to murder these names, and I'm so sorry about that, but we're going to try. I have their names written down. I have their numbers in case we just need to go to their player number. Because, some of these names, I don't know. I don't speak Korean. I'm sorry. I wish I did. I'd like to be multilingual, but... Okay, so as I said, we get introduced to Ji-hun. And he is basically our main character throughout. Yeah. I mean, we get some more main characters thrown in, but he's the one that we're basically following. And he's like 50, living at home with his mom. He's fallen on hard times. We learn later that, he had a job, but his job had to go on strike because, corporations suck.
Right.
And someone wound up dying during their sit-in, and he hasn't been employed in 10 years because of it. So
his life is just a mess.
He's a sad guy.
He's really in debt. He's got creditors coming after him.
Oh yeah, they're beating the shit out of him.
He's got his ex-wife not wanting him to see his child.
Yeah, because she remarried well.
Yeah, and when he does see his child, he can't do much.
Yeah, it hurts. And anyone who had kind of an absent dad, problem dad, will relate to this little girl more than to him, probably.
Probably. His life is frustrating because he just continues to make bad decisions.
Yeah, it's all on him because he gets money from his mother. Like, his mother gives him a little bit, and he's like, "What is this, my allowance?" Blah, blah, and he bitches and moans, and she's like, "Fine, whatever," and gives him more, knowing that he's gonna blow it. But she gives him the money because it's his daughter's birthday, and she just wants him to buy her some fried chicken. Like, the girl likes fried chicken.
That's what she
wants. Just buy her fried chicken. Instead, he decides to go to the track and try and make more money out of the money he has. And at first, he fails miserably. And then he does. He winds up playing his daughter's birthday. And the reason he plays his daughter's birthday, by the way, is because they go to the ATM. He steals his mom's ATM card, and they go to the ATM to try and get more money out, and she's changed the PIN number on him. Like, it used to be his birthday. And so he's trying, and his friend is like, "Hey, you miss it one more time, they're gonna lock you out, so you better really think." And he's like, ugh. Finally puts in his daughter's birthday, and he's like, "See, she loves her granddaughter." I'm like, probably because her granddaughter's a mooch off her,
right.
and live in her house and eat her food and shit. So what happens is at the racetrack, he plays his daughter's birthday, and he wins a lot of money. He just called his daughter, promised her this big, dinner, whatever she wants to eat, and this very special present, and then sees his creditors coming for him, and they chase him down, and he winds up running into a woman who turns out to be Sai Byok, number 67 player, and she picks his pocket when they run into each other, takes all the money he just lost. So when the bad guys, corner him, He's like, okay, I've got the money, I'll pay you, and then his pocket's empty. And so they beat him up a little bit, and then they make him sign this contract, which the guy tells him that the contract means you have to pay by next month, or I'm going to take your liver and your eye or your kidney or something like that. Whatever you can sell on the black market, he's taking it. So he, signs with blood, thumbprint.
With blood.
And then he goes to try, because he's got no money left, and so with the little bit of money he does, he tries to win his daughter a prize out of the claw machine, and this kid comes up to him after he's so frustrated, and he's like, here's the secret to it. Yeah. And so he has this kid win him the prize for it.
And he's wasted so much money
so,
by this point.
Right, just go to the toy store and buy her a toy.
Right, he could have bought her fried chicken and a toy. But back to the contract thing, I remember even saying, I was like, is this, because they make him sign this legal document that they're going to take his liver.
I was like, read it, dude,
and I'm like, really? Is this legal over there?
This isn't normal terms of service, or you just click agree, read this.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
And they gave us a little bit of the translation, but again, we don't speak Korean, so I wasn't able to read the whole contract, which I think is the point for viewers outside of Korea. You're not supposed to know what's in this contract, because it does get brought up again.
Yeah, and he doesn't know what's in the contract. So.
Yeah, he's just, okay, whatever, get off me.
Yeah.
So he meets with his daughter for dinner, and it's, not fried chicken. And she's like, it's cool, Dad, because Mom and Stepdad took me out for this big steak dinner, but I want this because this is junk food, and Mom never lets me have junk food. So she's trying to make her dad feel better, clearly.
Yeah, she's a good kid.
So he gives her this, which he got from the claw machine, a box. So he didn't even open it, I guess, to look what was inside. He was just like, perfect.
It's a toy.
So he hands her the box and she opens it and it's a gun inside. And she picks it up and he's like, and he tries to justify it. He's like, well, girls need to know how to protect themselves and it's getting dangerous out there. And she goes to pull the trigger, which is why kids shouldn't have guns.
Right.
Don't just pull the trigger. And luckily, turns out it's actually one of those toy lighters that just looks like a very realistic gun.
Which a kid also doesn't need.
Doesn't need. And she even says, she's like, I think you and Mom will fight if I come home with this. Maybe. And he's like, yeah, I'll hang on to that. And puts it in his pocket. So yeah, he takes his daughter home and he and his ex have a little bit of a tiff because he's late and she knows that he's a bum.
Yeah.
So we're at the point where we realize, okay, this guy is super down on his luck. He needs something because he's obviously not going to help himself. So he needs something to come in and help him. And he's at the train station and he runs into the recruiter, is what this character is credited as. So the recruiter is basically, hey, you want to play this simple game? Every time I win, every time you win, I give you 100 won or whatever it is.
Money, basically.
Yeah.
He gets about $100, I think, each time.
Very attractive young man. So they play, and predictably, Ji-hun loses a bunch. And he's like, well, the first time he loses, he's like, because he's supposed to pay him the money if he loses. And he's like, so about that, I don't have that money. And so the recruiter is like, okay, that's cool, easy fix. I get to slap the shit out of you every time you lose, and then we'll keep playing. And he's like, okay.
Right,
so he does. He slaps the shit out of him. So he keeps losing, and we get a montage of him just losing, getting slap. Finally, he gets the recruiter's piece to flip over, and he goes to slap him, and he's like, fuck yeah, my turn, and he stops him, and he gives him the money, and he's like, no, this is what we agreed to. I didn't agree to be slapped. And then he gives him a card, and on the card is PlayStation symbols. It's a circle, triangle, and square. And on the back is a number.
Only thing that's missing is the X. So.
Right, which I didn't realize you only needed 6 numbers for a phone number in Korea. Because I think there's only 6 numbers on the back.
That could be a movie thing too, here
555.
Yeah.
I don't
know. Honestly.
If you know, please let us know in the comments because I just found that an interesting point.
That is interesting. I didn't even notice that.
So he calls the number on the back of the card, and someone answers, and they're like, "Do you want to play the game?" And I guess he's like, "Okay." So we get a montage of him and some other people getting picked up, and he goes in the van, and he's sitting there, and everybody else is already passed out, which is clue 1, dude. Maybe don't get in the van. So he gets in, and he's like, "Oh, everyone's tired, huh?" And the guy driving, turns on the gas button, and he passes out because gas. And the guy driving's wearing a gas mask, and they take off. And he wakes up, and they're in a room. He's in a room full of people in blue tracksuits. What was it? 200? I forget how many started. It was.
His number was
456.
Yeah,
so yeah, because
exactly.
he was the last one. Because the recruiter even told him, he's like, there aren't a lot of spots left, so call quick. You know.
So I'm guessing they must have been wanted around 500, but then some people either didn't show up or whatnot. Because he's the last one.
Yeah, it's a weird number to stop on. 456. Like, okay. So he winds up seeing this character that we had heard about earlier. Sang-woo, who he went to school with, and they used to play the squid game on the ground where you have to run and tap the top of the squid. That's how the movie opens, is with him and his friends as kids playing this squid game on the playground. And he's kind of jealous because Sang-woo grew up, he went to college for business, and he supposedly has this great job and this great life. Well, Sang-woo is in the Squid Games with him, and it's kind of like, well, what are you doing here?
Right, I thought you were successful.
Right, I thought, well, what the hell do you need to be here for? Now, I didn't notice this till a couple, like 2 or 3 games down, when all the beds started coming out. I was like, hey, wait a minute, on the walls, that's the game they played? They just played that? Wait a minute, those are the games. So I'm like, why is no one in the room realizing, hey guys, here's our clues to what games we're playing? Like, they wouldn't survive. Like, I would survive Saw and Squid Games and all that. Like,
but weren't the bunks covering them up originally?
They were. That's what I'm saying. I didn't even notice it until because when people start dying, they take the bunks out, and so it's fewer and fewer bunks. And as the bunks are leaving, you can see on the walls that there's illustrations. And I saw the umbrella and star and whatever, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, that's the cookie challenge, which we'll get to in a minute. And then I saw the something else, and I was like, wait a minute, they just did that too. And I was like, oh, and I started looking, and every time they'd come back from a game, I would look on the wall and find the game. So I was like, if I, the viewer, can pick this up, like, why is no one living in this room realizing what's on the walls around them?
Yeah, because part of the game is they're always trying to figure out what the next game one is. So and a big
plot point is that there's a cheater that gets help finding out what the next games are. Which is a big plot point.
Oh, yeah.
But in the beginning, so the first game they play, they all get rounded up and put into this, like, simulated yard. And there's this giant robot there. And if you've seen the SNL sketch, that was hilarious.
Or if you've just been on the internet,
or in the internet in general, you've seen this giant robot girl. But
yeah, I thought she was going to have a much bigger part in it. I didn't know she was just in one part of the game.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be throughout. So
yeah, that's it.
A lot of what I've seen on the internet, thankfully, I guess, has been pretty much from the first couple of episodes.
Yeah, people have been good, and they haven't been spoiling it for other people. So thanks, internet. But yeah, so they've got to play red light, green light, which he didn't know. I had to explain to him because he didn't go to school and all that. He had a nomadic upbringing. And so he didn't go to school, he didn't play on schoolyards and all that stuff. So, like, he's like, red light, green light, what's that? I was like, oh. So I had to explain it real quick to him because that was one of the only few games that I recognized because the rest are all, like, Korean games and stuff. And so they're playing red light, green light, and that's when they realize, because nobody has told them. They just get told that if the players don't follow the rules, they get eliminated.
Right. Which, you're thinking like a reality game.
Right, okay, you go sit on the side. Right, yeah.
Right.
Time to go home, pack your bags, go home.
It's a really eliminated.
Which, by the way, we mentioned this a lot. Okay, so there's this show on MTV called The Challenge. I have been watching it since it premiered way back in, like, the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was The Challenge Real World versus Road Rules. Every season I've seen of this show, and I got him hooked on it. And we've been talking it because every season on The Challenge, it's like it's upped, and we're like, soon they're just gonna have them, like, set on fire and shit.
Right.
And so we're watching Squid Games, and we're like, oh man, if the MTV producers are watching this,
they're like taking notes.
Right.
All right, next season is gonna be the Squid Games.
Right.
Because you totally could do this without killing people.
Without killing, you could totally play it without killing people.
And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they're developing a game show.
I hope they do, or I hope it becomes like escape rooms.
Yeah.
Where they just set up like Squid Games and you can go play with your friends.
Because you could do it with laser tag. You could do it with paintball.
Oh yeah.
You could do
anything.
Right.
It'd be real easy to set it up.
Yeah.
If any entrepreneurs, get on that. I will support your business.
Right. And, like, I hope somebody's jumping on the Halloween costume contest this year.
Right.
Because there's a buttload of money to be made. And, yes, they're easy costumes. You could probably make your own. But, my goodness.
But those specific tracksuits,
I would love the mask that goes up and down and everything.
Yeah, but make sure you're square, because they seem to be top of the food chain there.
Seem to be. Although Triangle has the guns, so.
Triangle has the guns. But Square's the one in charge of the triangles and the circles.
True.
Don't be a circle.
Don't be a circle, right? Don't be a circle.
Anyway, those are the guards. So the guards, I guess we should set that up. We're so excited about this show. So the guards are all dressed in red, and the players are all dressed in blue tracksuits. But the guards have hoods. They have these, like, fencing masks. They're, like, black.
They look like speakers to me.
Yeah, they look like speakers, and they've got their little PlayStation symbols on them. And it seems the hierarchy is the squares are like the managers. They each get, like, a group, because there's only one square with a group of triangles and circles. So they're like the managers. And then the triangles are the ones who are armed. And then the circles are like the bitch boys. Like, their body cleanup and disposal and, like, that sort of thing.
Which, by the way, if someone hasn't done it already, like, there's a spoof series right there to do about working at the Squid Games and about the workers, you know?
Like, man, when am I going to get promoted to triangle?
Yeah.
Like,
Someday, if you work hard, you could be a square, too.
Right. So back to Red Light, Green Light. Because we got way off topic there. Yeah. Not really off topic.
There's a lot
off that topic. There's so much, you guys. So Red Light, Green Light, whole bunch of people get killed, but we get introduced to this awesome character, Abdul Ali, because Jihan, like, as the robot's turning around, now they've already watched a bunch of people get shot dead. Right. So they're, trying to make it, and as soon as the robot turns, he's starting to trip, and he gets caught by this other character that we find out is named Abdul Ali, number 199. And he, like, holds him up still.
That way they can freeze.
So they could freeze, so the robot doesn't, shoot them. So he basically saves Jihan's life here. They both get across. Sang-woo gets across, because he also kind of helped Jihan. He told him, basically, hey, hide behind someone else, then it's harder for it to see if you do move, because that's how he was getting across. And the other two characters that we really need to talk about in this scene are Deoksu, number 101, the bad guy.
He's a jerk.
And Saebyok, number 67, she's the main girl. They have a history. She's the pickpocket. They have a history. Clearly, they screwed each other over something. They hate each other. They want to, like, kill each other, kind of. And he's ahead of her in Red Light, Green Light, and she, like, grabs his hair on the freeze, and they're standing there, and she's like, oh yeah, bitch. And as soon as it's green light, she yanks him back and then races ahead of him. They both wind up getting across. So afterwards, everyone's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and, like, I think the robot, it has the motion sensors in her eyes, so she's able to tell who moves, but then there's gunmen up in the windows that are actually doing the shooting. Yeah. So they must communicate with the robot or whatnot.
Well, there's a control room, too, and you see the masked guy, the front man, he's called, and he's completely different. He's got an all-black mask, and he's walking across this cool-ass floor where they have the pictures of all the people, and as they're getting eliminated, the pictures disappear. Dark, yeah. So everyone's freaking out back in the holding room, and Sang-woo, because he went to business school and was a lawyer or whatever, he was like, well, in clause 3, actually, in clause 3, if a majority want to stop, then we all get to go home, and no one gets any money, but we all get to go home. And they're like, okay, well, before you all vote, because they actually let them vote, so they even call it like a democratic process at some point, and I'm like, well, you're not wrong, because it is the illusion of choice. Like, that's pretty much our democratic process right now, is the illusion of choice. So before they all vote, they show them, they're like, they have this giant empty piggy bank, and they're like, okay, because all these people died, here's all the money that you would win. Yeah, and so they fill it, half full with money, and everyone's like, oh, well, because everyone there needs money. Like, they are all poor, they're indebted, they really need the money.
That's how they're selected, basically. Is who
they're preying on people.
They're preying on the desperate, exactly. Yeah. And So apparently each contestant must be worth a sum of money.
Yeah, they said it was like, I forget what the amount was, but they said every single person was worth a certain amount, and when someone dies, that goes into the pool.
Yep.
And so they tell them you can keep playing, and as the money accumulates, whoever wins, they get to keep all the money. However, if you quit, we're going to divide all the money up amongst for the families of the people who died. So basically, you get nothing, but the people who died, their families will get all this money.
Nice gesture, I guess.
Right,
yeah.
I mean...
Because
nice.
as it stands,
that's
everybody
nice.
dies gets nothing.
Right, that's very nice. So everyone decides they're gonna vote, and it becomes very close. Like it's back and forth the whole time, and Jihan, because they decide to go in reverse order from their numbers, and his is the last number. Jihan has to go first, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be the one to set the tone. Like I don't want to vote first. But he says, no, I want to get out. Like, let's stop killing people and get the fuck out of here.
Right thing to do
at
this point. Because everyone is in shock. Because no one expected this.
Right.
No one, So at that point, I want to go home.
Right.
Forget everything. I want to go home.
Right. So Sang Woo, who was the one who was like, yeah, by the way, we can stop this. After he hears all about all the money and stuff, he's like, he changes his mind and he votes to stay. And Jiyoung kind of looks at him like, what the fuck, dude? Like, bro, what? So Se Byok, I believe, she also votes to stay. Deok Soo, I think, votes to stay.
It seems like he does. Yeah, there's a montage of just a bunch of people hitting red and green buttons too.
Right,
so.
And then Mi Neo, player 212. She's the first one who, when they all get back in the room, she gets on her knees and she's like, "Please, I have a baby. I haven't even been able to name my baby because I have to register. Please just send us home. Blah blah blah." And then she also, I believe, changes her mind and votes to stay.
Yeah, surprisingly, I think she does.
And we find out that this lady is crazy later. Like, this one's a little bit crazy. But I think she's fun.
Yeah,
like,
she's fun.
I think she's fun.
Crazy, but
she's crazy,
fun.
but she's fun to watch.
Yeah, and the ongoing gag about how old she is.
Yeah, which she doesn't look that old to me, but I don't know. I guess. I don't know.
I think it might be a culture thing.
Right, because she looks like she's maybe in her early 40s at
That's
most.
What my guess
at
is.
most.
That's
like,
what my guess is. They end up leaving it at 19.
But they all call her like grandma and stuff, and I'm like,
it's like she's not a grandma. But it's funny.
That's kind of rude.
Well,
so everybody votes. It turns out it comes down to the old man, who, by the way, I instantly fell in love with old man. Player 001, Oh Il Nam, we find out his name is later. I was rooting for him for the beginning, so I'm gonna have a lot to say at the end. But I was rooting for him because I was like, oh, little man, he seems like he's having fun. Like, what the fuck, you crazy old man?
The funny thing is, when you're watching this, like, I'm just expecting the worst to happen to this guy.
Right, the whole time.
He really is frail. Like, he shouldn't be there.
Like, I think I tweeted out, I was like, I just finished the first episode and I love little old man 001. Please don't spoil the horrible way I'm sure he's gonna die. Like,
but he also is the one who remembers the old games.
Yeah.
So he knows how to play them. So they
right.
kind of
So he makes it sound like he had been there before.
It does sound like that,
which we find out he has, just not in the way you're thinking.
Right.
So he's the final vote because he's player 001 and he casts the deciding vote to end the game and go home. While they're home, we get a glimpse of, basically, they're making us like all these people, and I was like, damn it, I just wanted to see some people die, I didn't want to like them.
I was telling her that's the benefit of making it a series instead of a movie, is they made us like all these characters, or hate the ones we're supposed to hate. But they did a good job. Like, you cared about
it. It is
all
very much like watching a Korean horror soap opera. Like, it's...
/ reality show.
Yeah.
Because that's what it kind of feels
like. It's fantastic. I love it. So they all go home, and for Jihan, who we've been following this whole time, we find out that his mother is in the hospital. She was diagnosed with diabetes. She may have to have her feet amputated.
Yeah.
She needs a surgery right away, and... she needs to stay in the hospital. Next scene, is him trying to tell his mom to get back in the hospital because she's walking out. And she's like, for what? She's like, we can't afford the surgery. I can't afford to stay in the hospital.
Can't afford the meds.
Can't afford the meds.
Yep.
So guess I'll just go home and die. Like.
So I go. Oh, so they have the same healthcare system we do here. Got it. All right.
We also find out in Ji-hun's life that his daughter is moving to the U.S. with her mother and stepfather because her stepfather got a job and needs to go there. So his mother tells him, like, she talked to somebody and he can keep custody of his daughter, but he has to prove that he's financially stable, which he is not. So then we move and we get to Sae-byok, story, player 67, again, because I'm sorry about her name. And we find out that her brother is in an orphanage because they're defectors from North Korea. They managed to get to China, I guess, but their father was shot and killed crossing some river or something, and their mother was caught. So she and her brother made it to Korea, but her mother got sent back north. And so she's been trying to raise the money to have someone go in and get her mother out. She apparently had already tried this once, and whoever it was, like, just took the money and ran. And so she threatened, there's a broker that she's talking to, and he's like, well, we can try it again. You need to have this much money, and, you know, I'll give it to the person. I had no idea he was going to run away with your money. I'm like, sure, dude, sure. So she basically puts a knife to his throat and threatens him. She's like, I'll get your money, but if I get screwed over again, I'm going to murder you. And I'm like, fair. So she's got, you know, reasons for needing to go back to the Squid Games. And then Sang-woo, we find out finally not as successful as his mother, as he's been telling his mother, and then his mother has been bragging to the neighborhood.
He's full of it.
Yeah, he's full of it.
He's full of it. He was successful, sounds like.
And then he, like, embezzled or something. Like, I don't know.
He got his
white collar crimes.
Basically, yeah.
So he's got creditors after him. He's got the police after him. Everybody's after him. Everybody's after him. So and the creditors are like, we're gonna kill your family, and like, yeah. So he's worried about his mom, and he doesn't want his mom to know. So he's kind of like spying on her because she thinks he's on business in the U.S. Like he's on a business trip. So he's spying on her, and he runs into Ji-hun, and they kind of talk, and they all wind up getting cards again to get invited back. And
which is basically what their point was when they let them leave, was you'll be back.
Right. Because they got down to 201. That first red light, green light game took out a lot of people. From 456 down to 201.
Yep. So a lot of people died, and obviously that's what shook them. But when they go back out into the real world, they remember how hard it was.
Right. Like,
and how desperate they needed money.
Right.
And now all these people are like, well, wait a minute. We survived round one. Maybe it's green light every game. Maybe we don't know. So surprisingly,
better shot in there than out here. You know.
So, and again, it's like I always say about gambling and everything: is what you're selling is hope.
Yep.
And so that's what when you're desperate, you will throw your money into it. You will buy hope because that is what you want. Just hope for a better life.
Truth. I worked at a slot place. Like, that's the truth. Mm-hmm. That's sad truth.
And that's what money gives you. So that's what we're really doing. So all these people just want to have a better life.
Yep.
And it's that instant. I don't have to work hard for it. I don't have to take 30 years. I can get it right now. I just have to survive.
Exactly. Oh yeah, and Deok-soo, the bad guy, number 101. We also get his backstory where he was working for some like mob boss or something, and he wound up crossing his mob boss, and so now he's got his former boss and all his people after him, and he meets with an old friend, someone that he thought was a friend, and they meet up, and this guy acts like he's gonna help him or whatever, and actually like drives him to get ambushed. And so he fucking murders the shit out of this guy in the car, then gets out and like faces down all the attackers like, come on bitches, let's go.
Lagoons.
Come get my crazy ass. And then just runs and leaps off the bridge into the water.
Yeah.
So he clearly needs to come back to the Squid Games as well.
Yeah, so some of them definitely, I think they're better off in the Squid Games than they are in the real life, but... Yeah.
And then Abdul Ali also, I want to touch on him because I really like his character. Poor naive Abdul.
He was so naive.
He was so nice and just so naive.
Just trying to make a better life for his family.
He's Pakistani. He came to Korea to try and, like he said, try and make a better life. Yeah. He's got a wife. He's got a baby son. And they need the money. And he's been working, but the person he's working for hasn't paid any of their workers in like 6 months. So he goes to the guy and he's like, I need my paycheck. And the guy's like, well, I can't pay you if I don't have the money. You guys are ruining the business out there, so we're not making any money, blah, blah, blah. Then he sees on an envelope full of cash that the guy's got there on the desk. Like, clearly this guy's lying. And he puts it in his pocket and he tries to walk away. And Abdul, attacks him and he's like, no, I need my paycheck. And I'm like, yes, pay the man. Yeah. Like, that he worked for you. He earned that. Give him his money.
Yeah, his freaking boss was claiming that none of his workers are getting paid. Yeah. They're all just volunteering working for free at the moment.
Which, again, I don't believe. He probably was paying, his Korean workers. And it was foreign workers like Abdul he probably wasn't paying.
Exactly.
Because, again, how do you get away with not paying a whole factory of people?
Yeah. That wouldn't go far here.
Right. It didn't go far there either because that was Ji-hun that was his backstory was they had that strike. So yeah, he winds up, the guy gets his hand, while they're fighting, gets his hand caught in a piece of machinery, and Abdul's Abdul's like, oh fuck, and the money gets dropped, and so Abdul's looking around, and he just grabs the money and runs, goes home to his wife, gives her the money, tells her to take herself and the son, and get out, and just leave, and he'll follow as soon as possible, because he'd already gotten the card, and so he knew he was going back to Squid Games. Poor Abdul. I really like Abdul. So they all wind up going back to the Squid Games. Same thing as before. They get knocked out in the van. Only this time, a cop follows them. Because Ji-hung, as soon as he got back, this is a really funny scene. So he goes to the police, and he's like, he's telling them their story, and the cop's like, okay, let me just stop you there, see if I got this. You were kidnapped, taken to play red light, green light, where a bunch of people were shot. And then they let you vote on whether or not you could leave. You all voted to leave, and
And now you're reporting it
right?
As a crime?
He's like, I know it sounds insane. I'm like, yeah, it does a little bit. That's kind of genius because who's gonna believe anybody who tries to tell about what they did? Yeah,
because it's completely underground. This isn't like a game show on TV or anything.
So this detective, Jun-hoo. Another very attractive man. He overhears the crazy going on, and he tracks down Ji-hung later because his brother has disappeared. His brother who owed money, who was, down on his luck, has disappeared, and he's trying to find his brother. So he approaches Ji-hung and asks him about what he was talking about in the card, because he had found the same card in his brother's room. And Ji-hung's like, I was just drunk, I made it up, because he realizes, no one's believing him. And Jun-hoo decides to follow. So he follows Ji-hung to where he gets picked up, and then in his car. Again, I don't understand how this car doesn't realize that there's another car following him, because it's very light traffic. He's going to his secret little rendezvous spot. Wouldn't you be like, hey, why are there headlights behind me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a movie thing. I think you just have to...
Right. So he winds up pulling over a little bit away from the docks, and you see all the cars going up onto the docks. So he texts his chief, and he's like, hey, I won't be in for a couple days. I'm like, no, that is not the message you send. You send the message saying, hey, chief, I'm going rogue on this case. Here's what's happened so far. Yeah. In case I disappear, here's where it looks like I'm going.
Yeah.
But
no, he's just
like, oh, I won't be there for a few days.
But then he sneaks under a car, gets onto the boat,
right,
and then ends up stealing one of the costumes. He totally...
A circle. He's a circle.
Yep. Yeah, he does a circle, but he doesn't know who he's... Yeah.
No, and so the other people come up to him because he's not in step with all the other people, and they're like, well, what's up with you, number 29? And he answers them, or he says something to them first, and they're like, you're not supposed to speak unless your supervisor gives you permission. So he's starting, they're giving him the rules so he can remember. Because later, when he's pretending to be a square, someone asks him what he's doing, and he's like, you're not supposed to talk unless spoken to. It's like, oh, damn. He remembered the rules.
Well, it's survival at that point. You better remember the rules.
So he's infiltrated. He's begun his infiltration. So they all get back. They're all back in the room. And we kind of get to watch how it happens because they're all passed out. We watch them get checked. We watch them get put in their tracksuits and all their stuff stored into a box. And
the pickpocket girl's not knocked out.
Because in the car she had covered her face because she knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. And so when the gas came out, she pretended to pass out and then was awake. So while she's on the slab getting dressed and stuff, she had a knife with her, and she smartly puts it in the pocket of the red suit guy who's dressing her. And then once they flip her back into the outfit they want her in, she picks it back out of his pocket and puts it in her sleeve. So she's got a knife now. Yeah. So Ji Young, the crazy old lady. She's pounding on the door. It's the dark, lights out. She's pounding on the door, telling him, I gotta pee. If you don't let me pee, I'm gonna pee right here on the floor. And nobody's letting her go pee, so she's like, all right. She's like, watch me pee right here on the floor. And they open, and they're like, all right, fine, come, because no one wants to clean that up.
Right.
So they take, and then Se-byuk comes in, and she's like, I have to go too. And she's like, oh, you mean I put on all that show to get to go, and you're just gonna jump in? And she's like, yup, and just walks right past her.
Which apparently I brought this up is none of the guys in the mass are women because they have to let them go in the bathroom by themselves. They just watch the door. So
they watch the door, and I don't think they understand how long it actually takes women to pee. Because they let them be in there for a long time.
Yeah, well, guys don't like to question those things. So
I mean, she does put on a show, but way too long are they in there before the show even starts?
The show's hilarious.
But Minyo. She goes into the stall and she has crotched a tube that she in a condom and she pulls it out. I'm like, what the fuck does she have in there? Cigarettes and lighter. I'm like, I get it. I'm a smoker. I get it. So she's like, smoking the cigarette, and Se-byuk comes in and opens the door and she's like, keep smoking your cigarette. I don't give a fuck. I'm going up there. And she takes her knife and she unscrews the vent. And she's like, oh, shit, yeah, I'll step right here. You just have to tell me what you do. And so she helps her get up there. So Se-byuk is going through the air ducts.
Air ducts, yeah.
Trying to see what's going on. And she gets to the kitchens. And she sees them, melting sugar into these giant pots.
Which we're all now starting to speculate what that is.
Right, I was like, are they going to play... I was like, oh man, are they going to play The Floor is Lava?
That's what I thought.
When they go into the next game, it's a giant jungle gym. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh man, they're going to have to play Floor is Lava tag or something. Yeah, that's not what it wound up being, but that would have been cool.
I thought for sure that when she said
it was like, hot sugar is... If you fall in the hot sugar, you're out.
Yeah.
But that would have been great. Future game.
Part 2.
But before that, she sees them melting sugar, and she's trying to figure out, what it's for. She's taking a while up there, so the other girl is in the bathroom still with her cigarette, and the guys are knocking, and she's like, oh, I can't get it out! She's like, oh, why won't it just come out? Pretending like she's having trouble pooping. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's really funny.
She's brilliant.
And again, the guards are like, we don't want to,
Right, they're like, well, hurry up.
Take your time. We're not going to get involved in this.
Right.
I don't get paid enough.
So finally, because she's like, hold on, I got it everywhere. There's no toilet paper. And so she runs and turns on the faucet. She's got the water going and she's like, I'll clean myself in the sink. Don't come in. I'm not wearing pants.
Again, the guards are like, okay.
Seems legit.
Seems legit.
So, the guards are finally like, okay, we've got to see what the fuck's going on. Right. And they go in and they open the door and both girls are back down. So she got back down in time. And they go back to the room. Minyo is like, what did you see? What did you see? And she's like, I'll tell you tomorrow. And she's like, tell me now. What the fuck? So Sang-woo overhears them from his bunk. And so the next day as they're walking to the game, he asks her, he's like, I overheard, what did you see? If you tell me what you see, I'm smart. I might be able to guess what the next game is. So she tells him that she saw them pouring sugar, and that triggers a memory for him from back when he was a kid, and he watched people make sugar shapes or whatever out of cookies, and he realizes what the game is. At this point, Ji-hung, Sang-woo, Abdul Ali, and Il-nam, the old man, have formed a team.
You son of a bitch! I'm in!
So they're supposed to be working together to help each other get through the games. This is the moment where I'm like, fuck that guy to Sang-woo, because he does not tell them what's going on. He picks the easiest shape, because they go in, and there's 4 shapes on the wall. A triangle, a star, an umbrella, and a circle. And they tell them all, without telling them what the game is or the rules or anything, they said, everyone pick a symbol and line up behind it. Ji-hun is like, okay, well, let's all stick together. And Sang-woo is like, no, we don't know what we're doing, so we should all go to different ones. Clearly, he's trying to cull the herd of his own team. So he picks triangle, Abdul chooses circle, and that leaves the 2 hardest, the star and the umbrella. And so Ji-hun decides he's going to pick the umbrella, and Sang-woo, knowing what it is like, are you sure? And he's like, well, I always liked umbrella. So he did try, I guess, to help Ji-hun, but not enough for me.
The umbrella's got intricate curves.
Yeah, exactly.
And thin little handle.
Right. So the old man takes the star because he likes stars, whatever. So the game winds up being, they get a tin with a round cookie and the shape already sort of cut out in it. And it's all made of sugar, like very fragile sugar. And they get a pin. They have to get the shape out without breaking the shape. So that's how you see the umbrella is kind of a dick move.
Yeah. And they have a time limit to do this too. And if you don't get it done...
Right. So Min Yao, she's the one who smuggled in a lighter and cigarettes. So she's super smart and hides under the slide and uses her lighter to heat her needle so that it easily cuts through the sugar. So she gets past, and as she's walking away, she drops her lighter in front of Deok-soo because she believes that he's the strongest there, and she wants to be part of his team. So she's trying to prove to him that she's valuable. So she drops the lighter and kind of gives him the clue, like, light it. And so that's what he does to get by, and he also gets through. Sang-woo has finished his cookie because he selfishly picked the triangle, the easiest one. And Se-byok has also chosen triangle because she was smart and watched what he did and followed him. So they both get through. Ji-hung and old man come down to the last few minutes because Ji-hung, he's trying to get this umbrella without cracking it, and it seems impossible, and he holds it up to the light to kind of see his progress, and that's when he realizes, wait a minute, the sugar at the edges is thinner, so if I lick it and get it wet and dissolve it, I should be able to just pop this umbrella right out.
Yeah, because wasn't his sweat kind of dissolving too?
That's how he figured it out, because he was sitting there, working
desperately,
and his sweat was dripping off onto the sugar, and the sugar was melting.
Very smart.
So he starts licking it, and you can see the red guys are looking around like, what?
It's not against the rules.
And the old man sees him do it, so he's like, well, fuck it. And he starts doing it, and then you look around and like everyone's doing it. I'm like, so Ji-hung and old man get theirs out. A bunch of people don't. More people die.
Yeah.
More money in the piggy bank. Then, because everything is high school eventually, there's groups formed, there's cliques formed. Because she gave him the lighter, Min Yao is now part of Deok-soo's group. Sort of. Like, they're using her. She's clearly using them too, but, And she's doing whatever she can to fit in and be one of them. She's making fun of people. They become the schoolyard bullies. Mm-hmm. Because, like I said, everything eventually becomes high school. So a bunch of stuff happens. That's, the drama of it that keeps you watching and stuff. But they go to their next game. And then the next game is Tug of War.